Arne Slot is taking over from Liverpool then, but which of the current squad should he keep? Who should he sell? Who should he let go on loan? And whose contract should he rip up? As you can see, I've got 34 names in front of me. Goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards. I'm going to assign each player to a tier. Keep them, sell them, loan, and let them go at the end of their contract. Before we get into this, though, just a few thoughts on this move, because it is a risk, isn't it? Let's start with the positives, because his brand of football, high pressing, attacking, attractive, does suit Liverpool on paper, and certainly it feels a little bit Jurgen Klopp light. I think a good stat to emphasise this is if you look across Europe's top 7 leagues, in terms of most possession won in the final third, Feyenoord and Liverpool are pretty much neck and neck exactly. I think in and around the 700 times ballpark since Arne Slot took over. And he's done this with a really flexible squad, an average age of just 23. He has obviously won Feyenoord their first Eredivisie title since 2017. I think only their second since 1999 as well. But like I said, it does feel like a big risk. I think there are quite a few negatives. I think the transference of skill from the Eredivisie to the Premier League is huge and very, very difficult. I think the transference of skill from the Eredivisie to any league actually has proved quite a struggle recently. You look at the likes of Peter Bosz, excellent at Ajax, really struggled when he went to Borussia Dortmund. You look at Erik ten Hag, excellent at Ajax, has struggled since he's been at Manchester United. You could even point to someone like Frank de Boer, who rinsed the Eredivisie really, and then we saw him across the rest of his tenures in Europe fail effectively every single time. Now, I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen to Arne Slot, because he's obviously got credentials in the Eredivisie, but he doesn't have the credentials of when, a Jurgen Klopp arrived and he won 2 Bundesliga titles, he'd taken them to a Champions League final. He doesn't have the credentials of a Rafa Benitez when he arrived and what he'd been able to do in Spain. And the more difficult thing, of course, for Slot is that he's got to follow Klopp. When managers like a Benitez or a Klopp came in the first place, Liverpool were competing for top 4 spots. Now they're competing for the Premier League title. You're following on from the greatest manager in the club's modern history, really. And you're doing that with a squad that I think needs quite a lot of work, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Let's start with Alisson then. He's an obvious keeper, isn't he? Yes, he's 32 years old, but he's still a post-shot expected goals positive goalkeeper, 76% save rate. And I think Kelleher as well has proved himself to be a very adept backup this season. I think Alisson has played narrowly more games than Kelleher this season, which is quite astonishing when you think of how much of an impact he's had on the team. I think before Christmas, Kelleher struggled a little bit. I think post-Christmas, he was fine. As for Adrian, his contract's up in the summer, isn't he? He's 37 years old. I think this is one of the simpler contract exits we're going to see today. Okay, into the fullback areas. And Trent Alexander-Arnold is a must-keep for Liverpool. An absolute must-keep. And I can't emphasise this enough because his contract's up in 2025. There's big decisions for him personally to make this summer. And I go back to the fact that, yes, he's had injury problems this season, but his overall numbers are, again, freakish. He is the best right back in the Premier League, in my opinion. He is a once-in-a-generation talent. And when that happens, teams like Real Madrid are going to be interested. We've seen these sort of early rumours that Real Madrid might have a sniff this summer. He's got 1 year left on his contract. There's a decision to be made there. But it's essential for Arne Slot that he keeps hold of Trent. I've got the Feyenoord pass map up in front of me here, and if you have a look at how they set up, obviously it is in this sort of 4-2-3-1. Lots of people have spoken about his 4-2-3-1 recently, and Geertruida, the right back, does invert quite heavily. He almost supplements the midfield too in that double pivot, and that's exactly what Trent does best. So I think for Arne Slot's system, for Liverpool as a club, it's essential they keep him. But for Trent personally, looking for some big demands. Honestly, I'd be saying either the wage is going to be crazy or you've got to promise me that we are going to sign big talent and continue to win trophies. The other 2 right backs then, Conor Bradley and Calvin Ramsey. Obviously, Calvin Ramsey, since he's come down from Scotland, has had a lot of injury problems. And that has been the case throughout this season, hasn't it? Obviously at Bolton, he's now on loan at Preston, not played an awful lot of minutes. I just continue to look for another loan. Whereas with Conor Bradley, we are really talking about the perfect Trent backup, aren't we? At just 20 years old. I mean, he also was on loan at Bolton, a bit like Calvin Ramsey, but he won, Players Player of the Year, Fans Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year. This season, his arrival in this Liverpool team has been nothing short of incredible. If you have a look at how well-rounded he is as a player, you will be blown away. I think, for me, the most impressive thing about him is his output in the final third since he's come into this team. Obviously, these numbers are in limited minutes, so they are slightly skewed. They are going to look better. But whenever you watch him, his heart, his desire, combined with a huge number of progressive carries, successful take-ons, shot-creating actions, gives you the perfect Trent backup. Into the centre-backs then, Konate is a definite keep. He's 24 years old now, though, and, very significant injury problems throughout his career, really. 11 injuries since 2017. So I think that injury record really needs close attention. Another player like Trent, whose contract is up in 2025, is Virgil van Dijk. There's 3 massive decisions in this team who have contracts running out in 2025. That's Trent, Van Dijk and Mo Salah. I think Van Dijk is another must keep. Yes, he might be 32, going on 33 very soon, but this is his best season since the knee injury. It's a real remontada for Van Dijk. He's been back to his absolute best. He's had a constantly shifting and changing defence around him, where it's centre-back partner, left-back partner, right-back, goalkeeper, defensive midfield in front of him. He's been the constant. He's been the monster. He's a must-keep. I think Joe Gomez, too, has proved himself to be a must-keep. I think at the start of the season, I probably would have had him in the sell column. But his versatility, be it a right-back, be it a centre-back, or at left-back this season, has been brilliant. And that's led to him picking up the most minutes of any season in his career since 2019-20. He's played 47 games in all competitions this season, Joe Gomez. Jarell Quansah as well, we don't really need to discuss him too much. He's a definite keep. I spoke about him a couple of weeks ago when I was ranking Wonder Kids. I think he is the heir to the Van Dijk throne, and he continues to impress, be it physically, be it on the ball, be it composure. He's got it all, man. Let's move into Joel Matip, who at 32 now, 700 minutes this season. His contract is up. Obviously, he's had that significant injury. Such a shame for him because when he's fit, the last couple of seasons, he's just been brilliant. Fantastic signing since they brought him in from Schalke. One of the great free transfers, really. But his contract's up. I think with other options potentially waiting in the wings like Quansah, Konate, it's time to move on. As for Nat Phillips, I think this would be our first sell. 27 years old now. I think he's under contract till 2025. He's on loan at Cardiff as well. And I think there will be championship clubs interested. You could probably get an okay fee for him from a side in the second tier. And that's probably his level. I also think it might be time to cut the losses on Reece Williams, given Jarell Quansah has really stepped ahead of him in the thought process now for me. And I think they will look to sign a centre-back in the summer as well. I think if you can get a fee, you've done well. As for Sepp van den Berg, who is 22 years old, he's obviously on loan at the moment at Mainz. He's actually, I think, put up the most minutes of any player in that Mainz squad, although they are struggling, aren't they? Down in amongst the relegation zone, I think they're 15th. They're actually defending okay. By expected goals conceded, they're 5th in the league. He has played a big role in that. So I think now might be the best time to sell him. I think you probably get a decent fee from somebody in the Bundesliga. He's proved he can play out there at a decent level. If you wait another season or you bring him back or you loan him again, I don't know whether or not he'll have as good a season. Okay, let's go to the left backs. Robbo, for me, is a keep. I think you need the leadership in a transition period from a manager like Klopp to another manager. And Andy Robertson is not only a leader on the pitch, he's also a leader off it. But it is just 14 starts in the Premier League this season, by far the lowest of any in his professional and Premier League career. The injury problems this season I don't necessarily see persisting throughout his career. We haven't seen that in the past, and I don't think we'll see that in the future. As for Kostas Tsimikas, Liverpool fans, let me know where you sit on him. I think I would probably sell. Given that Joe Gomez has proven he can be an adept left-back cover, and Andy Robertson will come back to full fitness, I'm not sure Tsimikas pushes Robertson enough in terms of his starting spot to warrant being kept. Let's look at the defensive midfield options then. For Feyenoord, they've obviously got Weaver in there, haven't they? He does that sort of more defensive role, allowing Timber to progress a little bit higher up the pitch. And I think Endo will be fine in there. He was decent value and he's proved to be a decent player. Do I think he is going to win them Champions Leagues and Premier League titles? No. Very good squad option though. What I do think will happen next season, and I'm hoping you'll see, is Stefan Bajcetic come back to full fitness. He's had that adductor problem, hasn't he? Get back involved in the side. It's been such a shame for him this season after an amazing breakthrough campaign last year. I think he'll really push Endo for a starting spot as the deepest in that midfield too. Dominik Szoboszlai. he's obviously going to be a keep. I do think it's been a little bit of a disappointing season for Szoboszlai. Went off like a rocket. The expectation immediately jumped up about 10 notches. He hasn't necessarily fulfilled that expectation, and I think at times he's struggled a little bit on the ball. Now, I think maybe some of this is down to tiredness. They've played a lot of games. He started a lot of minutes in the middle of the park, and it's in a much more demanding system than potentially he was used to in the Bundesliga, because his all-round numbers still look very impressive. But when you watch him, I don't see him having the influence on games I was expecting him to have, and I think that has to improve next season. McAllister is obviously just a nailed-on keep. I mean, he's a contender for the Liverpool Player of the Year, isn't he? Definitely one of the bargain transfers of the Premier League season. Been awesome, plays multiple roles. I could kind of see him playing in that timber role that Feyenoord utilise. I think he's a little bit better progressing and a little bit higher up the pitch than he is as the 6. He's done the job there, but is that where he's at his best? For me, no, it's a little bit higher at the pitch. So I might see him in that timber role next season. Curtis Jones, another definite keep for me. Still in 23 years old. He's the most minutes of any in his professional career so far this season. I want to see him get more minutes. I think he's a fabulous player. Impossible to get the ball off. Great ball carrier, great ball progressor from deep. There's going to be a lot of competition for those 2 deep-lying double pivot slots in Arne Slot's midfield, I think, next season, because I also think Gravenberch is going to be in amongst it. He will be very happy to see a Dutch coach coming through the door. There is something to be said for being able to communicate very effectively with him. He's obviously going to have seen Gravenberch during his time in the Netherlands, and he's still only 21 years old, which is quite remarkable. You know, it's 10 plus Premier League starts, isn't it, in his debut campaign. He has had a few problems with injuries, and I think at times he's looked a little bit underdeveloped physically for the Premier League. Despite the fact he is a very good dribbler and hard to get off the ball, the pace and power in this division is, you know, hard to adapt to, and I think you've seen that at times. But next season, I'm expecting big things from these guys in the midfield. They're going to have to perform. Thiago, no, it's a contract exit, isn't it? Sad end to his Liverpool career, but injuries have just caught up with him, as they have throughout his entire career. I think if he'd have stayed injury-free throughout his career, we could have been talking about one of the greats, man. Okay, Bobby Clark, I would think, needs a loan, as does Tyler Morton. Tyler Morton could be sold, you know. No. I think he's proved this season with his excellent loan that he's probably deserving of another one. I would try and get that loan, though, to a Premier League side, because obviously he was on loan at Blackburn last season. They finished 7th. Hull this season, they're probably going to finish in and around the same sort of area. I would try and see him go to a Premier League club. He's started 60-odd games now in the Championship. It's enough. Fabio Carvalho's a tough one. Again, a little bit like Morton. Potentially try and get him a Premier League loan. You know, we've seen him in the Bundesliga. We've seen him in the Championship. Can we see him in the Premier League? Okay, forwards, and this is where it starts to get tough, I think. Look, Mo Salah. We have to have an honest conversation here. Let's get out of the way straight away. Yes, he is one of the greatest players the Premier League ever seen. Yes, he is a total Liverpool great. But he's 32 now. The back end of this season has been underwhelming, particularly post-injury, which is what happens with players that are that age. He's put up the 4th most minutes in the squad. His body is getting battered. And yes, he's got the most goals. He's obviously got the most assists. He is still Liverpool's most influential forward. I think if £100+ million offer, maybe even like an £80 million plus offer comes from Saudi, I think you move him to sell. He has been one of the great servants for Liverpool, but this is going to be a season of transition. This is not going to be an immediate success at Liverpool. And when you've got a season of transition, you've got to use that opportunity to get maximum value out of any of your assets that you're going to sell or plan to sell in the future. And that is the case with Salah. For me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. That fee is just astronomical for a player of his age. Cody Gakpo, we're 18 months into Gakpo, aren't we? And I'm not really sure what his best role, what his best position is. He might emulate what Slot has done with Stengs at Feyenoord. And that is somebody who's not only going to put up some decent creative numbers, but is going to progress the ball with passing or with carrying, which is probably Gakpo's game, and playing more in that 10 role than as a number 9 or as a winger. Him and Szoboszlai will be competing for that number 10 role next season. I would expect Szoboszlai to start in it, but I think Gakpo could emerge as a key player in this Slot team. As for Luis Diaz, I think this is a definite keep as well. I think his off-the-ball work is incredible, and this season, when things have been going badly for Liverpool, yes, he might have missed chances from the wing, but his off-the-ball work, his dynamism, and his creativity go a long way to covering up other Liverpool problems. I also think if you look at how Slot wants to utilise his wingers, inverting, particularly a player like Igor, if we have a look at Diaz's profile here, what he brings to the team, in terms of his goals, in terms of his progressive take-ons, and then you have a look at Igor's, they transfer quite nicely. You know, Igor is going to get in the box, he is going to be difficult to stop, and he is going to score goals. These two mirror each other quite nice. I think Diaz is going to be a starter for sure for Arne Slot. Next up, it's Diogo Jota, who is another must-keep. I think if he'd have been fit for Liverpool this season for an extended period of time, they would probably be clear at the top of the league. He's putting up 0.9 non-penalty expected goals this season. You know, 10 plus goals in just over 1,000 minutes. Again, he is one of the most clinical finishers I've ever seen in a Liverpool shirt. Fantastic player, but his injury record is just catching up with him. It's almost Thiago-esque. It was a problem at Wolves. It's been a problem at Liverpool. Every time he gets fit, he just falls back into an injury. Ben Doak, let's get him a loan, I think. You know, 200 odd minutes this season. Very highly rated. Championship side. Harvey Elliott as well, I think another definite keep. He's an interesting player, Harvey Elliott, because it was 1,600 minutes of Premier League football last season. I think it's about 1,000 minutes this season. So it is a little bit of a fullback. And it's almost like, what's his best role? Is it that right winger? He doesn't really have the explosive pace to beat men in the 1v1. Is it a midfielder? He doesn't necessarily have the physicality to get up and down the park in a midfield 3 or even as a number 10 at times. So what's his best role? I think that's going to be very, very interesting under Slot. Let's get Jadon Danns out of the way as well. I think loan, fair enough down there. I'm not sure what's happened with his head on someone's body there either. So that leaves the Enigma. I spoke about him on my last episode, where I was ranking Premier League number 9s, Darwin Nunez. Let's face it, when he's on the pitch, he causes problems. There's no doubt about that. I think it's a 67-70% win rate this season with Darwin Nunez on the pitch. They win more games with him on the pitch than when he's not on the pitch. And he does put up big goal involvement numbers. But the issue is, in big moments, in clinical moments, to win major games, he doesn't turn up. He's underperforming his XG by nearly 5 this season. You think to the moments against Manchester United, you think to the moment against Everton. These opportunities have to go in if you want to win titles, if you want to win Champions Leagues. We've seen 2 seasons of Darwin now. Do we ever believe he is going to be that player that is just a stone cold killer in front of goal? I don't see it. I don't think he's naturally gifted enough to play on the wing. If a decent offer came in, it would have to be big money. I would probably sell him. That's really harsh, I know. But let's say I got a £60 million offer come through the door from Bayern Munich or somebody like that, or PSG. I'd seriously consider it. Okay, so that was my analysis of what Arne Slot will do with the current squad. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Let me know what you think of Slot's appointment as well in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. We'll see you later.